Many Warframes rock, but I don't think anyone is bolder than Atlas. For me, he wins by a landslide. Welcome to Off the Meta, where I make an off-meta build and try to convince you that it's worth giving it a go. Guess what? I've got another augment to show off. Whee! This time for our favorite punchy boy, Saitama, Atlas, or Atlas Prime. I literally had my girlfriend to buy this new augment for me the moment it was released while I was still at work. So let's pop this guy open and cram some mods into him. Without further ado, Atlas Balboa. I've got a pretty lean build here, so tactics will be important, as will the weapon build that associates with the frame. First off, Steel Charge. Since this is a melee-focused frame and build, this is pretty important. Also more capacity. After that, I'm going to build out the basics. First off, with the defensive mods. I'll be using Umbral Vitality and Steel Fiber. If you want to use Umbral Fiber, that's certainly a good fit. I just need more Forma for that. Umbral Intensify after that, then an odd addition I feel for an Atlas build, Primed Continuity. It's going to benefit an augment I'll be throwing in, and it will shore up the disadvantages of the next mod in the list. That mod being Fleeting Expertise. This is a no-flow build, so taking as much advantage of whatever energy can be gained is of key importance. Without it, Petrify is prohibitively expensive and can stall your Rubble gains hard. I'm throwing in Hunter Adrenaline after that for that sweet health to energy conversion. If you've got an Exilus slot open, I'd personally throw in Rush to move around a bit faster, but that's really user choice. The last two slots are dedicated to augments. First is Path of Statues. This is the Landslide augment that petrifies enemies left in your wake for a duration. Then, the Pièce de Résistance, Rubble Heap. When your rubble is over 1400, you get free and faster landslides, and they boop twice as hard, making high power strength somewhat unnecessary. Of course, this is going to require a melee build for a stat stick. There are a lot of options for that, ranging from your standard meta options like the Skana and Admire for their augments, or weapons like the Kogake and Obex that benefit from damage builds. Unfortunately, I'm all about self-sustaining builds, and those don't have the edge I'm looking for. Instead, I want to turn your eyes to my Nestle Crunch Bar. Of course, you can use any old Zaw, but I find this one to work particularly well, even without some sort of resin. When building the weapon, most of the parts don't matter, just make sure you lean into crit as opposed to status. Okay, that out of the way, mods. The goal for this Zaw build is to augment heavy attacks without excessive investment so that most of the build can be utilized for the stat stick stats. Alright, so PPP is first, obviously. Then Killing Blow. Heavy attacks are necessary for the build. Then, Sacrificial Steel. This will pump crit rate all the way up to 100%, and that's before doubling it for heavy attacks. After that, I have Gladiator Rush in here. You could substitute that out for more damage, but sometimes it's handy to build up your meter before throwing a heavy attack at something with a lot of health. After that, I've got in 4 other mods for damage. Primed Heavy Trauma for more impact, Primed Fever Strike and a 90 Elemental mod, and then Focus Energy. That just allows you to get at least 2 decent heavy attacks after building up some combo. The reason I'm using a Zaw for this build is Exodia Brave. This gives energy on heavy attack kills. What you may not know about me and the way I build my frames is that I try to be self-sustaining for things like energy and health. That's why I almost always use Magus Repair to heal my frames if necessary, why I enjoy using Life Strike and other similar methods. Relying on teammates is fine, but sometimes they can be unreliable. Also, spending resources on pizzas only to have them sucked away by parasitics is a bad feeling. Alongside that, one never knows who their teammates are going to be, so trying to rely on that can be a major tactical blunder. Alright, so I've got a built Warframe and a built Zaw. How are they going to combine? Well, first off, taking damage and heavy attacking with the Nestle Crunch Bar will regenerate energy. This will fund using Petrify and Landslide in combination to build up that Rubble. After you get Rubble maxed out, you get free landslides. This is where tactics become pretty important. See, if you've got a line of enemies, you want to try to target someone near the back so your Path of Statues will freeze up the people behind you. Then you can turn around and buzz those guys' heads in to refuel Rubble. If you run low on Rubble, just try to Petrify and Landslide the best you can. Sometimes the Rubble drain really gets away from you. The drain is a little fast for my taste, which is why I've usually ignored that mechanic, but this new augment is too tempting to pass up. I think all of this combines for a pretty neat build that has potential to be really fun. I've struggled with making this work for me. I think that's in part due to other frames killing too many enemies, which isn't usually a problem, but when your whole build revolves around using enemies as a resource, it rapidly changes that dynamic. As for how I made this build, well, I fiddled with a few things to really try to figure out what was necessary. A little power strength, a whole lot of chunk, and a little bit of confidence with how the build operates. I originally tried to just sub out a mod for the new augment, but that wasn't going to work for a lot of reasons. Chief among them, my propensity for attempts at one-punch builds for Atlas. The hardest part of this build is getting to the point of gaining free punches. If I had to make some sort of criticism for this mod, it's that it's a little hard to manage. Rubble depletes way too fast to make it actually fun to use sometimes, and it feels like there's not enough of a cushion to really make the augment fun to use. When I was finally able to get my Rubble up to snuff, I felt so anxious trying to keep Rubble up that I was never really able to settle in and actually have fun with it. That was before I slotted in fleeting expertise, making it much easier to maintain. I think this makes the build a lot easier to utilize properly. Now that you've got the build, why don't you take Atlas out for a spin? Do your best impression of a basilisk, go 10 rounds with Ivan Drago, then punch your enemies into fucking orbit.